As human beings, we invariably define our existence in terms of the stories that we tell ourselves and tell others about our lives. We define our lives in terms of stories, of concepts that allow us to make sense of a world that is often somewhat alien to our human nature. Oftentimes, the material world and the material universe isn't strictly strictly something that the human mind is intended to understand in all of its complexity. Obviously, we understand a great deal, and we are always learning more and growing to understand more. But there's a great deal of the raw base material universe that is not something that human beings are. We didn't evolve in such a way as to think of ourselves strictly as elements of that material universe. We evolved in such a way as to understand ourselves in somewhat different terms, and in terms of stories, of thought processes that make a great deal of sense to the human mind. From the earliest stages of human social evolution, we've defined our societies and our cultures and ourselves as individuals by stories, by the stories that we tell each other to explain the world around us and to explain how things are and why things happen the way that they do. And through that, perhaps concurrently, perhaps because of that social development, but regardless, we tell ourselves stories about how our lives progress, how we evolve as individuals, and how we change, and how we change the world around us. And those stories are an essential part of us. They define our self-image and the image of ourselves in the minds of others. Most of the things we think about in terms of human social interactions and how we judge things to be in the social world are determined by the stories we tell ourselves and we tell others about those things. And that's why it's so important to think clearly about the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. It's very tempting to tell ourselves stories about ourselves that may not necessarily reflect a more objective truth about ourselves. We we may fall into the trap of thinking in overly fantastical terms about our lives and the actions we take, why we take them, and the repercussions that they have. Which is not to say that there's anything wrong with fantasy, but always keep it in perspective.